Hey guys, welcome to Beer Thunder. I am Squish, and this is going to be your day zero BvR tutorial. Now, just starting from the top, this is going to be very brief. Hopefully, I'm trying to get it done in under 30 minutes and show you guys some stuff so that you guys can go out and actually play the game and have fun with it. So first things first is we got to go to test flight and we have to unfuck the default radar settings because the default radar settings are complete garbage. First things first, we go to options. We go up here, we type in radar, and this is going to bring up all of our radar options. We're going to start from the top to the bottom. We're going to go from automatic activation of radar at mission start. This just means that the radar turns on as soon as you spawn in. I am going to turn this off. The reason I'm going to turn it off is because I don't want to broadcast my location to everyone by default the second that I spawn. The digital RWRs are really good now, and on maps where there's only like 3 airfields, if you're kind of in that situation where there's a bunch of enemies, they're going to vector in on the first RWR ping that they have. So let's turn this off because we can decide to turn the radar on the airfield, but now we have that decision. Rectangular radar indicator, this is going to change the pizza shape to a square. We're going to turn that on. The reason we want to do that is as targets get closer to us in the pizza shape, they become really hard to distinguish, especially like close in. The square gives us a lot more fidelity up close. It's a little bit disorienting. I did like the pizza pie when I started out, but right now I am firmly in the Chicago deep dish pizza radar indicator as opposed to the thin crust one. Target switching of aircraft radar. We're going to turn this off. This means that we're going to have a cursor where we have to physically select the target that we want to lock, as opposed to basically hitting a button and tapping our way through all of them, where if you miss the target that you want, you have to start over at the beginning of the queue and try to hit the button the right number of times. It's good if you have like a controller, if you have a limited number of buttons. I'm assuming you have a HOTAS or you have a keyboard that we can map all of these controls correctly. Constant elevation of radar antenna, we're going to turn this off. Basically, this is going to allow us to elevate and decline the radar antenna itself, and basically we can fly on the deck and we can point the radar up, or we can fly in space and point the radar down. The default setting for the radar with it at constant elevation means that you're always scanning the horizon, or you're always scanning where the nose is pointing. So if you wanted to detect someone that was below you, you'd actually have to angle the nose down and point at them. We don't want to do that. We want to have full control over our radar set. Radar HUD and cockpit, we can leave that on. And then we're going to increase the scale to 133%. This is basically going to make our radar pizza square a lot bigger. I'm going to bounce out of here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on controls. The best way to go to find the controls is just to go up here, type radar. All of this stuff, I'm going to ignore it because there are already good radar tutorials out there that tell you what these do. They say how the radars work. The Jake guide is really good. It's really in-depth. I'm not going to tread over all of that. The practical application for Sim, though, are kind of these three things. These two axes here, horizontal and vertical, these control the cursor. Where I have these mapped is I have them on my control stick, and I have a thumbstick on my control stick that's basically similar to the hat switch, and that's what I use to control the cursor. Radar tilt control axis, IRST tilt control axis, this is mapped to a joystick on my throttle so that I can control both the elevation with one hand and I control the left and right with the other. I can basically have my hands on both sides and control the radar at all times. All of these buttons here, they're mapped to a bunch of different stuff. The change modes, change range buttons, they're mapped on basically hat switch, a four-way switch, where I can quickly get to them, and then I have ACM mode on like an up press. So basically you want your radar stuff to be quickly accessible for the stuff you know that you need to do right away. Some of the other stuff, maybe switching modes all the time isn't necessarily as prioritized because in all reality, we're going to be using a lot of TWS. All right, back here, just as a quick refresher of how the radar works and how it does the thing. It does the beeps, it does the creeps, it does the sweeps, it does the boop, and the boop, and we're going to just basically go over that. Starting at the top, we are in track while scan mode. This is TWS mode. There's a bunch of different other modes. I recommend TWS for most uses, but we'll go over them anyways. We got search mode, we got search PDV that sorts your targets based on how fast they're coming at you. We got search pulse Doppler. We got standard search. We're going to be using TWS for the most part. Moving to the left, at the top left, we have 50 by 6 degrees. Basically, the 50 by 6 degrees means that the radar scan box, this thing with all the horizontal lines where it goes left and right and stops, basically it's telling you that it's scanning 50 degrees total area. So it's 25 degrees left of center, 25 degrees right of center, and then plus 3 degrees minus 3 degrees. Basically, if I put it all the way over here, it's scanning to the right side. All the way over here, it's scanning to the left side. And that's what the 120 degrees means, by the way. 120 basically means that the range from all the way over here to all the way over here is 120 degrees. And to visualize that, wait, put it all the way over here, it's scanning kind of like that way. And if I put it all the way over here, it's scanning that way. And the up and down, so it means it's scanning like up there and scanning like down there. It's basically what that means. And then once we move from that top left corner, we're going to move down. We have a 60 degree indicator, and then we have minus 60, and this is where the elevation of the radar comes in. So basically, I can move where the radar is pointed. You see the square moving up and down. This bar scale is what it's called technically in LARPer terms. It's moving up and down, and I'm doing this manually with the little joystick that we mapped earlier. So right now, it's scanning a 50 by 6 degree pattern left and right, but it's pointed kind of like up there. It's doing like one of these. It's going boopity boop, boopity boop, boopity boop. In the meantime, if I do it all the way down here, it's doing the same thing. It's going boop, 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 boop. It's looking down now. And that's how you kind of can control the radar and figure out where it's pointed. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go through the basically the different scan widths, because the scan width in War Thunder is also going to change the scan height. And depending on the situation, you're going to want to vary the scan height and the scan width, because a narrower scan width with no other changes is going to be able to repopulate sooner than a wider scan width. And if you already know the direction of the target and you need to get them on the radar quicker, doing a narrower search pattern is more effective. So we're going to switch to the next TWS mode. This is a narrower TWS mode. Basically, we are scanning a 20 degree wide pattern here by 13 degrees. So it's scanning less left and right, but it's scanning more up and down. So if you need to find a target and you have an RWR ping and you know that, say, he's over that way, but you don't know his height, doing this will basically repopulate the height a lot quicker than our default mode. So we have 50 by 6, 20 by 13. Point it up, point it down, point it right, point it left. Now, one of the problems with War Thunder is the radar doesn't really memorize the last location. So as you turn or as you point the nose down, this elevation is going to change. So you're going to have to be constantly on this elevation and correcting it to actually point at the target. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go through the other modes. So we switch back to TWS, and we're going to switch to Search PD. If we notice something about Search PD, it's a 60 by 13 box, and then it's a 20 by 6 box. So, and then the last thing we have is a 120 by 6 box. So we have a really wide pattern that's a little bit slow to update. But this is like a pretty good search pattern if you like don't know anything. If you don't have the ability to find the enemy, you can like scan far and wide. Now, if you notice down here, we have our horizontal line. This is an enemy. This is a MiG-17 or whatever. Horizontal lines are bad guys on this mode. If they are a double horizontal line, if they're a horizontal line with a hat on it, they're good guys. Good guys have hats, bad guys don't. We're going to switch back to TWS, and this is where TWS is going to come in really handy. We get the guy here, and we get a little dog leg coming out of it, and this dog leg basically shows how fast he's going. Bigger line means he's going faster, and it shows the direction of travel. This is really helpful for actually having some kind of situational awareness in Sim. Aside from that, the other modes that you might use, search is a little bit better for searching for things that are above the ground. If a guy's long range away, this might be better in some cases. I don't really use this one a lot. Search PDV, this sorts the targets by the velocity that they're coming at you. So at the top of the scale, if something is coming at you very fast At 2,910 knots, it would be up here. If it's down here, it's coming very slow at you. So if you want to intercept a missile or a hypersonic missile, you would pick something that was up here. If you wanted to kill a guy in a Cessna or a paraglider, you would pick something down here. But generally speaking, I haven't found Search PDV to be all that useful in Sim. Is it neat? Sure. Move back to Search PD, TWS. Generally speaking, I will use the 50 by 6 degree pattern for finding targets. If I know the vector to the target, I might switch to this mode. If I'm trying to reacquire a target, I'm going to switch to this mode. I'm going to switch to a narrower search pattern because at least I have like a vector to the target and I can get them back on radar faster. Because getting people on radar first and getting them back on the radar faster is going to be a fundamental skill for actually excelling at beyond visual range combat. Anyways, that's the short part of it. This is the how to unmess up the controls. Let's go into some other practical applications. Before we get into some gameplay, we have to go to our NFT file. NFT number 1 is just going over some of our basic LARPer terms. I made it in Microsoft Paint. Please forgive me, they're not supposed to be good. Basically, if you're pointed at an enemy target and you're closing with it, you are hot. It just basically means that you have radar contact, you have nose on, and you can more or less start shooting missiles at them. If you are notching, when you are notching, you are turning 90 degrees to the incoming missile, because what happens when you are notching, this is how you defeat radar missiles, is they get confused and they fly somewhere else. And then if you're running away, you shout out, "I'm going cold!" And that just means you're running away. It means that you've lost radar contact. They're outside of your radar scan pattern, and you are going away. It's pretty much all it is. The only other thing that's not on here, because you can't rotate the plane 45 degrees in Microsoft Paint, is I'm cranking, which just means that you shoot a missile and then you turn one way or the other and put the guy in the left or right limit of the radar screen. Now we move on to the second NFT. Basically, we are modeling a brand new player versus a BvR veteran or whatever. Basically, in BvR, your first priority is to acquire the target. If you can acquire the target and meet launch parameters first, you will have an advantage. And you can even offset the fact that your missiles might be shorter range by getting your radar on target and being able to make that decision first. The other thing that you need to do is basically once you launch your first missile is turn to the right or turn to the left and put the guy in the radar gimbal limit. Basically what this is going to do is if he counter launched on you, if he launched first, it's going to set you up to bleed his missile of energy and ensure that if you guys both shot at maximum range, the maximum range is calculated as if both of you guys flew perfectly straight. By doing the zigzag pattern, you're going to drain the enemy's missile of energy. You're also going to increase the distance it has to fly in order for it to reach you. These new active radar homing missiles, they are not very good at maintaining energy after the motor burns out. The AMRAM's currently probably the best, but we'll see what happens once we get to the live server. Our next NFT is just a further illustration of the first one. Basically, if blue plane flies straight, he will fly straight into the missile. And if red plane does the zigzag pattern, the first missile will have to overlead. And then once you turn back, it's going to lead the other direction. And it's going to run out of energy. It's not going to hit him. And this is how you are able to close the distance on even a semi-competent opponent. The whole goal of active radar homing missiles, this kind of combat, is basically to be able to either hope the guy is a noob and flies into the missile, or hope you can shoot the missile close enough that no matter what he does, he's in a no escape zone. Basically, he can't get away from it. And our very last NFT is going to be more or less a two-dimensional representation of what a fully developed beyond visual range duel looks like. More or less, we're going to be zigzagging at each other, firing missiles. And the thing that we are looking for is we are trying to get close enough. We are trying to play the odds in our favor and trying to make correct decisions at the right time, whether or not to stay hot or go cold. Because there's going to be a point where either both of you eat missiles, one of you eats missiles, one of you eats a missile, and then 10 seconds later you eat a missile, or one guy goes cold to run away from the missiles, and the other guy is able to run him down. Basically, it's a decision-making process game at the end of the day. Okay, I have wasted 15 minutes of your time with mapping the radar controls and going over really super duper basic theory. Let's get into some dev server gameplay. So this is not going to be as good of gameplay footage as I wanted to have because my other footage is lost on the dev server because I can't do the TAC view replay thing because dev server is closed. Basically, I made the first half of the video and I was going to get footage, and then dev server closed, can't go look at the replays and go look at the TAC view. So instead, you're going to get basically the first person's perspective of my very first beyond visual range duel against the cat boy, rabies boy, the bestest boy, the guy who plays DCS and knows dicks very well. So we're taking off, and we're doing Afghanistan, and we did a lot of these because if you start the duel, if you start the 1v1 on like a conventional map, you're already within radar range. The radar capability doesn't become as big of a factor. The ability to launch the first shot, the ability to kind of like test out the flight models was also a thing that we were doing at this point too. Basically to see like, how do we expect things to match up in the future. You can see that I'm cycling through a bunch of different radar modes. Basically what I found out with the F-15C is the track PD head-on mode is a lot better for detecting targets at longer range. Who would have thought that the head-on mode was better at doing the head-on mode thing? But you see that I'm switching in TWS to narrow and wider search and like even slightly narrower search, and the F-15C has like this super narrow 15 degree by 15 degree, I think it is, search that I think that's going to be very useful, especially for BvR in situations where you don't have a lot of opponents or you have like one or two guys that you want to target. Anyways, we're flying up, we're trying to gain altitude. The thing that I found out with the F-15 and all your other planes, kind of like the higher you go, the further you can just chuck the missile across the map. But I kind of split the difference. I figured 8,000 was a good place to start. Ideally, in an EC match, maybe I would look at where the contrail altitude starts and maybe start just below that. I fire my first AIM 120, and I'm going to shout that I'm cranking, and just like turn to the left. And I notice that I have a radar lock, and because I'm in voice channel with Messer, I have a pretty good idea that he shot first. So I'm going to more or less trash the missile, go away, fly away from it, because the new missiles, they're reasonably fast off the rails, but their motor burns for a short time, and they have, relatively speaking, higher drag than some of the stuff we're used to. It's not R27ER levels of goober, but you also don't want to fly perpetually into them because the active radar seeker, the radar on board the missile, will eventually take over and it will guide itself into you. And the main advantage to these missiles is if you get them close enough to the target, you can turn away, run away, and the missile will continue guiding itself. It is not like our semi-active radar missiles where you need to slave the radar in order to basically get it to hit the target or use the inertial guidance to get like really, really lucky. But because I'm scared, because I'm a pussy, I'm going to fly away. And I've got missiles behind me. And one of the things that I learned doing a couple of these is, yes, the missiles that are behind me right now, they're probably trash. They're probably going Mach 0.5. They're probably going really slow. But a lot of this is vibes based. Like, to get good at it is going to require a little bit of practice. I've got my super search here. That's what I'm going to call the narrow thing because it makes it seem professional. I've got it slewed to the right with the idea that as I turn back into him, I will pick him up as soon as possible and be able to target another one of my missiles. But that's not the case. And as I'm pure defensive here, as I'm running away, it means he's going to be able to close the distance eventually. It means that basically he has a huge advantage here. And this is kind of the position you don't want to be in. At the same time, if you're in the offensive position, if you overcommit to it, this is going to happen. Basically, we're going to get close enough that, yeah, I'm going to eat a missile, and I'm going to die, and then he's going to eat a missile. And that's unfortunate, but that's how a lot of your gameplay is going to look when you start out. We are going to move a little bit further in the BvR character arc, and we are doing a 2v2. We're on Vietnam this time, and this is part of us kind of testing out how these new missiles work and kind of just getting a feel for how things work. And if you notice, I play with the radar search modes a lot. I play a lot with the the width, the height, the everything. I use this thing as a fidget spinner. It has been kind of a hindrance to my gameplay in the AIM 9 meta because I think there is a definite benefit to simplifying your gameplay as much as possible, and adding complexity to it in the form of the radar is like wasn't necessarily the move, but it might actually come in handy now because now I have a pretty respectable idea of how to do this stuff. The pulse Doppler head-on mode does pick up targets further. I basically shoot these first two missiles, and your first two missiles, like your long-range missiles that meet the engagement criteria, that basically where the lines on the right side of the radar say that um, if he keeps flying straight, he'll fly straight into the missile. Those are skill checking missiles. They're not really expected to hit, but they're just there that in case if they try to run it down on you, they will have to fly into something. But I don't have a lot of confidence here. I don't have a lot of confidence in the position I'm in. A lot of missile tracking stuff going on the left side here. Keep trying to keep track of my teammate as well because we're doing 2v2s. We're not doing 1v1s anymore. We have decided to add a layer of complexity to it, and part of this was to test whether or not the run the deck playstyle is still viable, and how viable can it be, and what is the impetus to do it. And it so far it seems like, at least in the small scenario, Shezerate's pretty damn good at hugging the deck. Like it make me very angry. But as you see, we got the MSL warning on the right side. We're kind of thinking right here, we got Super Search to the right. We're thinking of turning into it, but I have decided to play it a little bit safer, and we decide not to do that. We got this narrow pattern going on. We got slewed to the right. We have a target that's running away that seems like it might meet the criteria for being the player-controlled target. So we're going to get him searched up. We're going to get him on TWS. We're going to launch a missile in case he turns back into it. We have a missile coming at us. We're going to put him on the right side here. And hopefully we're going to get it within pitbull range and then turn away. Basically, we're playing chicken. That's like, in all honesty, like that's what BvR is. It is a really if you want to put it on a pedestal, it's a very intelligent game of chicken. But I mean, it's chicken. Like you just kind of you're trying to run at each other's face and see who veers off the first time, and if you veer off the wrong time or the right time, you just might die. It's really all it is. Don't need to like put it on a pedestal. Got our super search slew to the left. We're looking at our ally here because he's getting locked up too, I think, at the same time. So if we can kind of search him, we might be able to find the guy that he's engaged in. We're also keeping the radar slewed below the horizon because we don't see anyone up high. We don't think there's anyone up high. We're not receiving RWR pings, and we'll widen out the search pattern because we have no RWR pings to go off of. So if we widen the search pattern out, we have a better chance of picking people up. In the kill feed, Rex gets Shezerate. He gets his target. He was able to find him. We go back into Super Search, and we're going to just kind of like slowly break this guy apart. And we're not quite to the point where we have like the search pattern down and like the methodical way of doing it. I haven't like perfected this where I can give you a 37-minute seminar on how to actually do Super Search and where to search and when to search. I'm just kind of doing it based on vibes, and vibes is going to be a lot of the game for you. I hate to say it, but there's no way to learn this thing rather than to just go out and do the Nike thing and do it. Anyways, we got a target. It looks like it might be a player. We're not sure. We got the MiG-29 ping to our front right, so we're going to try to super search up Shezerade here because it's like, hey, I've got one target running away. That's the F4F. If we can get Shezerade on the radar, we can kind of assume where he's at. We're not necessarily going to be successful at that, and we also might be tracking AI targets because that's what the F-18 ping to our rear kind of lets me know is like, hey, the guys that you just pinged, those are probably AI. So we're going to get super search here slung to more or less to our left, and we're going to get our radar mode set to basically the horizon and lower. I don't see anything that's higher than me. I'm assuming that he's below me, and I think that 15 degrees is enough to really encompass most of the range. We know that he's generally been in this direction. We'll widen the pattern out again, and we get our friendly on the radar. That's the initial contact, and we're just going to keep flying this direction. We'll angle the radar up, down, side to side, and kind of try to figure out what the hell is going on. Now, the problem with angling the radar and the problem with doing all this stuff is like it's really distracting. It's really easy to get distracted with doing the radar thing and not doing the look outside of the airplane thing. So it's a really delicate balance to get to. We see the missile. We try to defeat the missile. I'm going to run away for a little bit. And as we're running away, as we're defeating missiles, we're not going to concentrate so much on the radar. So a lot of this is going to be priorities of work. Set your priorities. And I think your priority should be to not die. We get super search to the left, and we're going to kind of angle it towards where I think he's going to be. He's down. We get him on radar pretty quickly. We get our friendly on the radar. He's flying away. And this is the point where we can get a missile off. We get the missile off as soon as possible. We are within pit bull range, and we're basically going to notch chaff and run away. We get the kill, and that's a successful BvR engagement. It was kind of rough. And I think that is a realistic expectation. I think as the new patch drops, as people learn, as you map your buttons, as you add a new quote unquote dimension to your gameplay, it's gonna be rough starting out. You can have the buttons, you can understand the theory, but applying theory to practice is going to take some time. So don't be afraid to get frustrated. Don't be afraid to go out and fail, because it's going to probably happen more often than you would like to admit. Anyways, that's the video. That's your day zero beyond visual range spam ram guide. Let me know how it goes. Let me know if this guide was helpful or not. If it's not, I don't care. You watched it. You maybe subscribed to the channel. If you didn't, whatever, we'll go forward and make better guides.